We are here. Just gonna jump right into this because it has. I apologize, guys. I meant to jump in this yesterday, but you know we're eating an early dinner, and I hadn't really spent much time with my wife that day, and we were just getting a time crunch, and it's better not to rush things too much. I mean, I'm in a little bit of a rush today, but not we can manage it. So we got some Monticello Vineyards, Oak Knoll in Napa. It's not one of the most prestigious. Whoa, hold on a second here. That is foggy. Hold on. Give me 1 second. This is all smudged up. All right. That's a little bit better. So it's actually rain out here. So I'm cramped up by the grill, as you can see, just hanging out under this veranda. So the wine's good. The wine's good. It's a lot more mild compared to a lot of these Cali wines. But let's just jump right into it. Man, this thing is all, I think it's fogging up because it's outside or something. All right. All right. So a lot has happened this past week. A lot's happened this past week. I think that you guys, I mean, those of you who've been watching the news, seeing what's been happening, I think this was a pretty big week in terms of things, new info being disclosed, so to speak. So what are some things here? So this is a topic I wanted to get into first, talking about meatpacking plants. This is a really gross topic. I'm gonna lead this off with a really gross and disgusting topic. It's one that I'm not certain I believe, but I think that there could be some truth to it. I think if it is true, it's not like crazy widespread, but I have heard that. Well, so you've probably heard the cabal refer to us as cattle, right? And there was an image of some product, some meat product that came out a little bit ago that basically it was basically talking about, how do I put this? It was saying 100% cattle, right? It wasn't saying that it was 100% cow. It was saying 100% cattle, which, you can say, okay, well, that's, what do they mean by that? They probably just mean cows, right? But there's been a lot of chatter about how the cabal has actually sold humans as flesh for other people. There's that cannibal club in Los Angeles, which, look, to me, if you look at that thing, it kind of looks fake. It kind of looks like maybe someone made it up and it was fake. It's not really well done. So I don't think that you should put a ton of stock into all that stuff. People get really crazy about it. But I thought it was very interesting that you saw some significant COVID outbreaks among meatpacking plants, particularly around Green Bay. And I want you to hold this really, really lightly, but there are a lot of people who claim that there is human flesh that is put into some meat products, like ground beef and ground meat products that we get. I think it's something that's really gross. And a lot of attention was being drawn to the fact that there were these outbreaks at the meat plants. But again, hold it lightly. And I don't know that we'll ever find out things fully about that. But it brings up another interesting topic when you're talking about like vibration and you're talking about meat. And this is a controversial thing. You guys, most of you guys are coming from, why would they want that, right? Why would they want that? Well, they do it for themselves. But this gets into the bigger question, which is that the things that you consume affects your vibration. And so you will see people who get into really, really high vibration, very, very energetically sensitive groups. They actually don't eat meat usually, or they eat it very sparingly. And I find it very interesting. I think it's an interesting dialogue. I'm not like that. And the nutrient aspect of meat is undeniable, in contrast with veganism. It doesn't, I mean, people disagree about that. My perspective is that you do get more nutrients from meat, but from an energetic standpoint, there is truth, especially when you're talking about the meat industry as we know it today, which is really just one of the most cruel operations that's ever existed. I mean, you don't want to really focus on it. I mean, you should be aware of it, but if you try to focus on it, it becomes a massive pain point to see what has happened to so many of these animals, that just the terrible, cruel conditions. And you ingest that energy. You ingest that energy when you eat that food. And actually, this is kind of interesting, because if you go back to Native Americans, for instance, Native Americans, whenever they'd kill an animal, they would thank that animal for its energy, for its sacrifice, to provide for your own nourishment. And they always, of course, would try to use every part of the animal. And even in more Western traditions, we had a tradition of praying before we ate. Now, why do you pray before you eat? Now, people just think, oh, some dumb Christian likes to pray before he eats. But there was no the Mass CABAL event. That was I don't know about that. Was that the thing with Lady Gaga? Anyway, I'll get to that later. So no, this was a tradition because it was understood that if you showed gratitude for the food that you were ingesting, especially the meat from the animals, that it sort of changed the energetic elements of that food, and that it kind of canceled out, perhaps you could say, the karmic elements. And I like this philosophy better. To me, it jives more, which is that the issue isn't eating animals, because let's be real, animals eat animals. But there is a really serious issue with the way that we treat animals that we eat, and the process in which we get it. And I also think that we don't need to eat as much meat. This depends on your, I think, genetic makeup as well. But we generally don't need to eat as much meat as we do. But the point of this, I think, is really interesting, is the idea of putting human flesh into our food supply is a way of sort of affecting our vibrational state, which affects our ability to resist, basically. So it's interesting stuff. I'm curious about all of it, but yeah, I think the real lesson here is be very grateful for the food you have, especially food that comes from animals, right? Especially from the animals who sacrifice for you, right, to give you nourishment. It's important for your soul to talk about that, to be grateful. So, all right, let's see some other things here. So, a little side note: maybe some of you guys saw the AT&T CEO's out. It's a pretty big CEO position. There was apparently also an anon on the Chans who predicted that was going to happen. Well, yeah, that's also it. And this is just a little last side on the meat thing. I mean, even just from a 3D nutrition standpoint, meat has a much higher toxic load than plants. So it has more nutrients, it has more toxins. And that has to do with the kind of stuff that they put in with the animals today. So AT&T CEO steps down. I've been hearing some stuff that there's a lot of light workers. There's a lot of people who are in the media who aren't bad, but they're just kind of stuck on the sidelines, or maybe they believe some things themselves. But I'm hearing that in the near future, and I'm not putting dates on this because I don't really, yeah, and it's like truth seekers, like a lot of people who get into media. I mean, there are a lot of them who get the hack positions who are there because they are looking for status and they feel insecure, but a lot of them are there just because they're truth seekers, right? A lot of them wanted to be like investigative journalists, but then they ended up writing, 10 cats that, you have to see on BuzzFeed. I'm actually sure there's probably not a big crossover between those two groups, but the fact is that there are people in media who are there because they wanted to be in media for the right reasons. And guys, there's gag orders on people in media. Like, you can't talk about certain things. It's in your contract. They have to sign, like, the top anchors who are on television, they sign NDAs, which is why when you see someone go off script, they cut the channel right there. Oh, we lost you there. And then the person like never gets back on the show, or they get fired if they were someone who works there. So there's been a massive control of information about this stuff. And I wonder if this is going to, we got somebody here mandating, it's kind of funny. You guys, like, I'm going to block this person, but it's kind of funny that people think about this stuff. It's like, you're thinking about getting your temperature rectally like monitored. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird projection there. But let's segue into that and talking about Trump and his bleach comments. Let's talk about that, because this is something I thought was. Now look, I'm not defending. I'm not. This is Trump presser. Trump using his kind of persona language, which is very vague and very kind of all over the place. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that Trump spoke very eloquently and clearly, and the media misrepresented him on this, in the sense that they, how do I put it? Like Trump could have, of course, said things clearer, assuming that that wasn't his intention. He was talking to BRICS. He was talking to the BRICS. He was asking about medical advice. But here's the big thing here about it. This is the big thing, okay? He didn't tell anybody to inject themselves with bleach. What he was talking about was two things, and one of which was about using sort of disinfectants internally in the body to flush things out, which actually is what is done in a lot of procedures, right? I mean, there was a guy recently who had his lungs. He had severe, I think, the alveoli in his lungs were really damaged, or clogged or something like that. And they used saline solution, which is a disinfectant, and they basically put it throughout his entire lungs and saved his life, right? And well, injecting sort of like chloro-based chemicals into your body is something that's regularly done when it comes to chemotherapy. Uh, we have a tradition of doing that, and also, guys, it's in vaccines. The same kind of stuff. These sort of disinfectants, these sort of like chlorine-based things, are in vaccines. So this is the kind of funny thing to me. They're trying to say Trump is saying inject yourself with bleach, but that actually in a vaccine, that is in a vaccine. And again, I am not here to go into this whole thing about, I don't have a clear-cut opinion on being anti-vax or not, because it's true that like you can see someone gets a vaccine for like chickenpox and they don't get chickenpox. So I mean, you can't say that it's not that they don't work at all. It could be that the results have been exaggerated historically, but you can't say they don't work. It's about the trade-off. And also, not all vaccines are the same. Some vaccines have higher levels of mercury or aluminum and some other things than others. But it is true that most of the vaccines we have, they have these bleaching agents inside of them, or disinfectant agents. They also have mercury, not as much mercury anymore, but a lot of aluminum. They also have aborted fetus cells in it. They have DNA from other animals inside of it. So you're putting a lot of stuff in your bloodstream when you take a vaccine. I think it's just important to understand. That's just the truth. I mean, this isn't like some controversial thing. I mean, it's controversial, but it's literally just take the ingredients from what is in the vaccine. So I think it's relevant to have a discussion about it. But I thought it was funny because like they're making this big thing about Trump telling you to inject these agents inside of yourself, where that's like what we use for cancer therapy, and that's what we use in vaccines. And also there are some therapies that do use sort of these kind of agents on a more manual level. But here's the big thing that's really interesting, is that when we are, it could be, look, I know people tend to use they read into a lot of what Trump says, and I don't know about that. I don't know whether he was being cryptic. It certainly was bait. It certainly was bait for the media, because I mean they've run with it to such a large degree. And I have to think that the way he was saying it, I have to think that maybe that there was something to it, but I don't know. I mean, Trump isn't always clear in how he talks, and I don't think it's really relevant to read into it. Maybe it was part of a plan. Who knows? But this is what's really interesting. Okay, the bleach was the one that they ran with, but the really interesting thing was him talking about light and how light kills the coronavirus. Now, first, we know coronavirus is a bat. It's a bat cave, right? So it comes from bat caves. It comes from bats, the bat virus. So it's in very dark, moist locations. And one of the reasons that we don't have any vaccines for SARS or AIDS, by the way, right? HIV. It's funny because SARS, like COVID-19 is a SARS HIV combinatory, but we don't have a vaccine for either SARS or HIV. So it's kind of funny that they're making the big thing about, we got to get the vaccine for COVID, Okay, well, why didn't you get it for HIV? You've had 30 years to get it for HIV. So, but here's the point. Here's the point here. Coronaviruses, in general, don't do well with the sunlight or with heat. And they tend to hit hard, maybe, and then they fizzle really quickly when the seasons change, which doesn't mean that it's not going to have a resurgence, of course, but that's important to keep in mind. But two, sunlight is so fucking good for you. It's so fucking good for you. And luckily, if you're like me, if you're like a red Nordic, like yours truly, you don't need as much sunlight to get the same benefits. But sunlight's very, because we're better at processing it. We don't look as good, but we're better at processing it. But it is so powerful. There are I think your immune system jumps up. People talk about vitamin D and they're like, well, I can just supplement with vitamin D. It's not just that. It's not just that. There is so much in sunlight that is important for your immune system's functioning. It's so important, guys. Like, even if you're someone, you got the Gaelic blood in you and you can't be out in direct sunlight for a while, that's okay. But you got to get some sunlight. It's very, very healthy. You can see I'm a bit red from yesterday because I walked for 10 miles yesterday listening to tons of the stuff that I'm sharing with you right now and taking some client calls. So, okay. So let's keep going with this. So sunlight's very important for your immune system. And guys, a little side note on sunscreen. I don't wear sunscreen anymore. I'm not. This is not medical advice, right? But I don't wear sunscreen anymore. I don't wear sunscreen anymore because sunscreen blocks out some of the rays that are very, very important. I think it's UVB. They block out the UVB rays, which are very, very important for your body to have. It triggers a lot of mechanisms, and also you're putting basically like petrochemicals on your body. It's not good. I used to put sunscreen on, and it always felt like shit. And I don't do it at all anymore. I just make sure that during the summer, I only go to the beach after 3 p.m. And I don't wear sunscreen, and it's amazing. I feel so good since I stopped putting that shit on my body. And in extreme situations, I might make, like, if I'm in the tropics and I can't get shade, that I'll make an exception, because getting yourself burned isn't good. That's like too much of a good thing. But the point I'm trying to make here is that sunlight is very, very good. Sunlight is very, very good. And yes, nutrition also helps prevent sunburn. One thing I've noticed, and this has been confirmed by people who are familiar with the subject, right? People on Twitter, right? Is that Grimhood, who's really brilliant, really like total, one of the most incredible holistic healers I've met out there with like herbs and everything. But vitamin C, if I have high vitamin C and good hydration, then I don't get sunburn nearly as quickly, which is very interesting. Like, if I've been inside for a while and I haven't been eating well, and let's be real, I'm a human, I've done that before, and I've gone out in the sun, I'll get burned really quick. But if I'm eating like fruits and stuff, and I go out and I'm drinking water and I go out in the sun, I can last so much longer. Without getting burned. But anyway, this is really important stuff. It's important stuff. But so Trump was talking about the importance of sunlight, but this is multi-layered. He was also talking about UV, a UV therapy that basically it bombards your body with, especially your lungs in this case, with ultraviolet rays to kill coronavirus. It's very, very promising, actually. But here's what's interesting, okay? Here's where we get to like the funny stuff in like our little conspiracy periscope we have right here. Is that Twitter? This is like a biotech firm, okay? This isn't like some rando saying stuff. It's a biotech firm that's doing studies, developing treatments with very, very high, like very, very promising results so far. Twitter blocked their account. YouTube took down their videos. Okay? So you have first they're attacking Trump for talking about hydrochloroquine. Again, I'm probably saying it wrong. HCQ, making fun of him for talking about this when there's proven results. And then a company that's developing a treatment to get rid of coronavirus using UV rays, their accounts get completely removed from social media. And it's not random account. It's a biotech company. They are not able to talk about their treatment. Okay? So this is when the people who I love them, who are thinking in very linear terms about this virus, need to wake up, because this is not what's going on. It is not what's going on. If there was like genuine effort to try to get rid of this, all options would be on the table. Oh wow, UV can get rid of this. This is great. Oh wow, like this anti-malarial drug, which has been safe and used since the 1940s in many countries, not even with prescription. I love how they're talking about that, by the way. Like, everyone can die from HCQ if you use it wrong. Of course, everything's in the dose. This is but if it's a drug that has been literally without prescription in many places since the 1940s, it's a pretty safe drug. All things considered, it's a pretty safe drug. Okay, you know, people like to make fun of me that my hair's thinning. Yeah, it is thinning. Okay, I use minoxidil. Minoxidil can cause heart problems, right? But it's a generic thing you can get at a drugstore. I'm not trying to make, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to make direct comparisons here. I'm just trying to point out that there is a real agenda here to stop any treatment besides for a vaccine for COVID. That is the agenda. Nothing can cure COVID but the vaccine. If you don't get the vaccine, you're killing people. You're killing people. We don't feel safe. We're killing people. So anyway, very, very interesting. Now, let's see what else we got here. What else we got here that we can talk about? Well, let's talk about let's move to Kim Jong Un. I want to talk about this. Kim Jong Un, our boy. Man, I'm fired up, ready to go right now. All right, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Kim Jong Un and Kim Jong Un's family and what's going on here. What I think is going on. I don't know, but what I think is going on. Okay, so of course, you guys recall, Kim Jong Un, this fat terrorist. He wants to kill everybody in the world. He's got nukes and everything. He's going to nuke San Francisco. He's going to do this and this and this. All right. And then Trump goes and talks to him, and everything's good. Now, what happened in the interim? What was going on in the background? Now, the narrative that we were told is that he's this wild dog, and China's very frustrated because they can't restrain him. Okay. Well, what was really interesting, Kim Jong Un, this bloodthirsty animal, right? This bloodthirsty animal, fed his own uncle, who was basically his father figure, most loved person in the world, person who raised him, fed him to dogs and had them get torn apart. Well, do you actually believe that? Do you actually believe that? Kim Jong Un was controlled by China, and he had a retainer of generals that were in bed with China. This is one of the reasons you can never have peace, is because China wouldn't let it happen. Now, I'm not talking about Kim Jong-un's father or grandfather. That's a different story. But Kim Jong-un's brother, actually, he had two brothers, okay? He's a third brother. The first brother, exile, stayed in Switzerland when he went there for school. He wouldn't come back. The other one was, killed in Thailand, trying to get out of the way, basically. He was trying to escape, and he was killed in Thailand, assassinated. So it goes to poor Kim Jong-un, who eats himself to death to try to feel better about his poor, sorry situation. He has to become the new figurehead of this puppet state, which is used to threaten and extract conditions from the West. So what happens while Kim Jong-un when Trump starts to negotiate with Kim Jong-un? Well, there is an earthquake. There's an earthquake right at North Korea's nuclear facility, and all of North Korea's top nuclear scientists and generals are all killed. All of them are killed. And right after that, Kim Jong-un and Trump are like best friends. So, and Trump's very complimentary towards Kim Jong-un. Maybe it's because Kim Jong-un doesn't want to do this shit, but he had to do it, and we killed off his entire sort of monitoring crew. I'm losing the words right now. Okay? And so immediately Kim Jong-un's like, I want peace, and everything is going forward with it. China's, and then keep in mind, during this, they have all the trade stuff with with China going on, all the trade wars with China going on, right? If you can define Trump's foreign policy with as anything right now, it's not to do with the border. It's China. Is that Trump is at we are in like a Cold War with China right now. That's what's happening. We're in a Cold War with China, and pulling North Korea away from China was a big part of this. And so you see apparatchik bitch Katie Tur has this story that comes out recently that Kim Jong-un is dead. Kim Jong-un's dead. Okay? Then she has to retract it though, because maybe that was a planned story that was supposed to go out there, which it happens. They're fed stories, but maybe it didn't go according to plan. And maybe Kim Jong-un wasn't killed, quote unquote, on the operating table, which is assassination, right? To install his sister, who looks actually like a bloodthirsty bitch, to put her on the throne, so to speak. So my belief is that Kim Jong-un is safe, and I wouldn't be surprised if American special forces basically intervene to take him out of the situation. And, who knows if that's one of the reasons that Trump is going to be a little bit under the radar for a bit. I don't know. I don't know about that. That's really speculative. But suffice to say, I don't believe that Kim Jong-un is a bad guy. I don't believe it. I don't believe that he's the guy who's really been doing this stuff. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't look like it. What he looks like to me is he looks very sad. He looks very sad, and I think that's why he's so fat. I actually think he eats himself eats nonstop to feel better about himself. So we'll see about that. We'll see, but I don't think he's dead. But if you think he just died on the operating table, then God, I can't believe how people just everything is like what they're given is just there's no questions asked about it. So what else do we got here? Well, I think that the last thing I want to really talk about here, we have a few other things. Yeah, Child Protective Services. I want to talk about child trafficking a bit. Because this is I was talking about the FBI and child trafficking. So Child Protective Services, a couple things about them that you guys probably don't know. Child Protective Services gets money for each child they take away from their parents. And they don't get money for returning them. They get money for reassigning them to other places, right? But it's more than that. They also have a quota of children that they have to reassign from parents. Because it's statistically, we should have this many. So we have to get some children away from their parents. And, of course, what happens when you take a child away from its parents? I mean, obviously, there's exceptions to this. But talking about is the medicine worse than the cure? You're going to take a child, and you are going to put the child with a complete stranger. The rate of sexual assault and physical abuse is like 6 times, I think I read, as high as it is with biological parents. I mean, obviously the best sort of situation is that if a child's in a rough situation, that another family member, and I know people like this who were under very abusive childhood situations, and their aunt and uncle took them in, and that's like much. I mean, and there's even problems with that, historically, but much better than having a complete total stranger who is getting paid to collect children. And I don't want to disparage foster parents because a lot of them are really good and they're doing tough stuff. I mean, my dad worked in the inner city Camden, New Jersey, the city that for a long time was in like the top 3 highest death rates in the entire United States from murder and violence. I mean, it was a shithole city right in South Jersey across from Philadelphia. So I don't want to I'm not trying to take away from the good foster parents out there, but the system incentivizes the wrong things in a lot of scummy people. And I've heard as many, if not way more, stories about people who collect children to adopt because they get more money from the government for doing it. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because right now you can say, well, this is just, Child Protective Services is poorly financially incentivized and, they could be doing things better. The system could be better designed. But actually it's worse than that because there's an enormous number of children who go missing from Child Protective Services. Hundreds of thousands every year go missing. And where do you think they go? They go to John Elephantis' basement. That's where they go. talk about the coincidence, and this is a really good segue. I'm going to circle back to the Child Protective Services stuff. But Alephantis, the Pizzagate guy who owned Comet Pizza, is the gay partner of David Brock, right? Who is in charge of Media Matters, which is probably the biggest liberal, like Clinton-esque liberal propaganda organization that exists. James, thank you, James Alephantis. It is probably the biggest propaganda outlet that the left has, backed by Soros, of course. So these two people are together, and there's an exchange that I saw recently with Alephantis. Alephantis was threatening to kill somebody because he was. This is while Pizzagate was a hoax, right? He was threatening to kill somebody because he was talking about Alephantis's basement in Comet Ping Pong, which looks like a meat hanger. What it looks like. It's very interesting to have like steel walls everywhere, empty room with just steel walls everywhere. I don't know. Look, guys, it's happening. Okay, this stuff is happening, and Child Protective Services plays a major role in procurement. So does the open border stuff. But Child Protective Services, they get kids around here because guess what? Poor kids don't have institutional support, and this is one of the ways that we can really reach out to the left and bring the left on board, because they're not really preying that much. They're not preying that much on the middle class, because, and this is one of the things that the Catholic Church has become so pro open borders, because the Catholic Church, I mean, a lot of Catholics, unless you're talking about the Hispanics that are coming across the border, they're like middle class, maybe working class, but they've moved up the economic ladder, the old Catholics, right? And so you can't just go and molest a kid like you used to. They don't have the same sort of blind support. So they go for poor people. And so the point is that there is this whole thing around poor people being exploited. Because when it comes to getting the high that comes from taking the blood of a child who's been tortured, which does give you a high because it's young blood, forgetting even about adrenochrome, forgetting about like talking about it in that specific granular detail, this is even like open that big tech people are using. They are getting injected with young blood, and it makes them feel younger. So if you do that and you also add to that adrenaline, which really makes you feel alert, I mean, you get both a serum of youth and a high. And so forget about even like going into the details of adrenochrome itself, which I'm sure is accurate, of course, but you can tackle this from a very overt level that no one can dispute, because this is in public. I mean, it's in news articles talking about how tech CEOs are injecting themselves with blood of younger people. So if you take a child and you scare that child, you dress up in all sorts of rituals. Again, ignoring the esoteric magic elements of that, which are also correct, but ignoring that, you don't even have to talk about it on this astral level. You can talk about it in purely 3D. You get so much energy from that, from those children. You get a massive high, and your life gets extended accordingly. So a poor child has no recourse, especially a poor child who comes from a rough family. They'll take that child, and that child disappears. It completely disappears. And I want to tell you a little bit about, I have some names here. So Nancy Schaefer was one of the big ones, a big whistleblower in Georgia about this. She lost her entire career going into this. She's talking about how Child Protective Services were scouting for children. And a lot of this stuff about incentives and quotas I got from following her work. And then you have, in addition to that, Brittany Drexel. Maybe you heard about her. And there was this whole thing. She was missing for a while, and they were saying, oh, it's no big deal, blah, 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 blah. And then they were saying, well, Brittany Drexel, upstate New York, right? She came from, I think, further south, but she was found in upstate New York. And they were trying to say, well, Brittany Drexel, I guess she just got kidnapped by some creep and that was it. But no, actually, that's not what happened. If you guys have seen the movie Taken, okay, have you guys seen the movie Taken with Liam Neeson? There's a series of them where his daughter gets auctioned. And he's on this vendetta to find his daughter. Remember, all these movies are disclosure, and this is their downfall, is they keep showing us exactly what they're doing. I watched Mission Impossible 3 last night, okay? which is much better than number 2. I don't even know. Number 2 was bad, but watched Mission Impossible 3 last night. And again, more disclosure right there. You're talking about elements within the CIA, right? I don't know anything about Liam Neeson, and I believe it. I believe it. I 100% believe it. I mean, I haven't heard anything specifically about him, so that's usually a good sign. Because most of the people in Hollywood are not evil. There are definitely a handful that are terrible. And then there are many who have done some bad things. But most of them are just like, I can't go against this, but I just have to deal with it, right? Ricky Gervais talking with the Golden Globes was like some of this stuff changing. He's like, fuck you guys, I hate you fucking people. I hate you fucking people. And now you can't do anything to me because your time's over. That's what he's basically saying. He's like, I can call out all your bullshit because you can't do anything at this point. But this is the thing. They constantly disclose stuff. They constantly disclose what they're doing. And they have to do it. They have to do it. It's like, a criminal always tells what other people are, what he's doing. You always have to leave a trail. It's a psychological thing. When you do bad stuff, you have to let people notice about it. So you have in Taken, you have this story, right? You have this story, and of a girl being sold at auction, and that was Brittany Drexel. That was Brittany Drexel. She was sold at auction, and she was recovered. And she was one of the only ones that we know of that was recovered. Very few are recovered. Most don't make it. Avicii's whole video for Another Day was all about child trafficking and killing child traffickers. And he you know how Avicii died, right? Avicii died by killing himself with a broken wine bottle. That sounds pretty accurate, right? It sounds pretty accurate. He started to develop a numbing problem with himself. But he didn't overdose even. I mean, he killed himself. It's like he shot himself in the back of the head, right? That's what he did. Avicii shot himself in the back of the head. Oh, guys. So FBI. So let's talk about FBI and its involvement in all this. So the CIA killed Kennedy, right? CIA killed Kennedy, but the FBI covered it up. And this is what we need to see in the JFK files because it'll completely destroy those organizations. It's in the JFK files. They also killed MLK because MLK was about to plan a march on Washington to say, hey, all this stuff that Lyndon Johnson did is bullshit. It's complete bullshit. It's all been a scam. And so they killed him before he was going to be able to do it. Because he's a smart guy. The FBI is basically the defensive line, or the offensive line, I think you could probably say, for the cabal. Because the FBI, what they do is that they shut down investigations. So, for instance, when it was found, I think in the DC area, that there were tunnels leading into preschools. Okay, can someone please explain to me why there were? Can someone please explain to me why there would be a tunnel going into a preschool? Do you know? Do you know why that would be? Or am I a conspiracy theorist? Tunnel going into a preschool. And what happens is that the FBI, you have local investigators, a sheriff, he's looking into this. They've got their boots on the ground. FBI comes in and says, this is our jurisdiction. We're taking this case over now. And then what do? They take the case and they sit on it and they don't do anything. And they kill the investigation. And then maybe we had declassification 50 years later. Maybe. But that's what they do. And that's how they shut down all of this stuff. So people are like, how does it get suppressed? Well, the FBI just has to take it over and then sit on it. Most people are good. This is one of the things I have a real issue with. It's like, well, everybody up there is corrupt. That's not true. Look around you. Are most people that you know pieces of shit? Are 90% of the people you know pieces of shit? For most people, that's not going to be true. Unless you came from a really cruddy background, that's not going to be true. So let's stop this stuff that says that everybody is evil. A lot of people are weak. That is true. A lot of people are weak, and people have flaws. But are most people evil? No. Most people are not evil. But what happens is that you can blackmail, you can control things, and people won't stand up because they're like, well, what can I do? What can I do to stop it? Well, the truth is you can do a lot to stop it. And you can start talking about the stuff to your networks that we're talking about here. And don't shove it down their throats, but plant seeds for them. Because people need to wake up and realize that, I mean, even a lot of like MAGA people, and I really think this is not like a partisan thing. It's not a partisan thing. We are all humans. You know, Yang Gang 2020. No, I'm just joking, but it is like humanity first. Like it is actually about being humans. And most people on the left, they care about this stuff a lot. They've been deceived, like the right was during the Iraq War. It goes both ways. The deception is significant, but the biggest goal is for polarity, for everyone to fight against each other. So I just want you guys to really, really internalize, like, drop this crap that everybody's greedy, everybody's evil. No, what happens is that you have criminals take over a system and they blackmail people who are too weak and have personality flaws. They can't resist against it. And so some they corrupt, others they suppress. Basically, they make them stay in fear, like you can't say anything if you want to even be able to live. And that's what they do. And then they gradually take power and they corrupt systems. And then those people corrupt with each other, engage in corruption with each other, and gradually start to take over stuff. The biggest issue here is fear, is that people are way, way too afraid. Okay? So, I just got two little last things here, and then we're going to start taking some questions, okay? We're going to do really, really quickly because I want to get the questions. First off, bird database. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it basically tracks where money in the government goes. 21 trillion is missing. Okay, 21 trillion is missing, which is basically the national debt. So this is stuff that's been stolen by the cabal. Okay, just to get you guys a little seed there for you guys to understand. Last thing I wanted to mention. Well, this is actually tied with FBI. Antifa, for instance, Antifa gets arrested by local police. The FBI says release them. So yeah, you guys were going to be wondering, why does Antifa get to go and run wild like that? Okay, so that's because the FBI basically tells the police departments that they can't keep them, that they loose them out. So understand these are things that are going on in the background. I think that was pretty much all of it. I can save. I'll go really, really quickly through the. So there's the Austin Elon thing. You know, Austin Steinbart, right? Some people like to hear about this stuff. Austin Steinbart, guy who claims he's Q. Again, don't know if he's Q, but he's clearly on the right side. He's clearly part of the Q team, and so, and you know, look, the Greenland marker I don't think was really solid, to be honest. I mean, I know in a previous video I said, well, like it looks like they resigned, but I haven't seen that really corroborated very well. So it could be that was not correct, and maybe the timeline's a little bit lagged. Maybe that's it. There was a Q post on March 21st that said basically that I think I may get the date wrong, but basically the date that Austin was arrested, there was a Q post with a 2-year delta. 2-year delta is important in the Q community. That said that Austin was actually, that they said Q has now been in prison. They're trying to shut down communications. That's more credibility towards him. I do admit that I find it a bit. Well, I can see that Austin's been on the front lines, and I can see him. I can see he's a good guy. I do feel a little bit weird about him claiming that he's in charge of the Space Force and everything in the future. But I keep an open mind with it because I think that most of what he said has been correct, and I have no doubt that he is working with the military intelligence of the good guys. I have no doubt about that. So if we're being deceived in maybe a benevolent way. I'm not really sure about that. I'm not really sure. But, you know, Elon, right? He said he was good friends with Elon Musk because, you know, Elon's working on Starlink. And I don't know I would not know how to type Austin. I don't actually want to even think about it. I'll lose my track on that. So, Austin and Elon, someone said like tweeted at something to Elon and said "Free Austin," and he said, "I agree." So there's more evidence there that Elon does know Austin, which is more credibility for Austin. And again, I think it's the most important thing here is not to talk about Austin and think, oh well, Austin is 100% Q. Maybe he is, probably is, but he's certainly, like, the attacks against him are not coming from the right place, not coming from the right orientation, and he's clearly working for the good guys. So just some stuff there. Last thing was talking about Stargate Ascension. I'm just going to breeze through this. Magenta Pixie talked about it. I recommend you just go to her site and you can hear more about it. But this is a way to sort of ascend through the period, is that you focus on, first off, you have to understand the enemy's plans. You have to understand what the Cabal's doing. And then next, you have to say that you do not consent to their plans. You do not consent to be involved with it. This is very important. It seems kind of stupid, but from an energetic standpoint, saying that you do not consent is really important, because the only way they have power is through manipulation. That's it. I mean, if everybody knew what we were talking about right now, Cabal would be done in 2 seconds. They had nothing to work on. So you have to say, I do not consent. I will not engage in your plans. I will not do this stuff. But the third part is the most difficult one, because the third part is that, and I also understand and accept you in that you're here, and this is your role you're playing. I don't hate you. So it's like putting up a boundary without getting involved in the polarity. Because what happens, remember, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Love and hate are the same thing in a certain sense. They're energetically, the intensity could be the same. The vibration is different, but the intensity could be the same. And so it's relevant because if you are in this fight, if you're engaged in too much in the fight, then you actually will start to feed into the negative. You create an enemy to fight against. So it's really to detach and accept and to not hate them for what they're doing. It's just, they're done and we're moving to a different level, but no hate involved with that. So with that, I will take some questions. We got some questions? Any questions here? I'll just say real quickly, Pompeo, by all accounts, is on the right side. I heard Pompeo is one of the really closest guys to the alliance, like one of the purest people within the Trump administration. Him and Scavino. This is what I've heard. I don't know. To be honest, I don't focus as much on that intrigue within the Trump administration. I don't do that. For whatever reason, it just hasn't been as interesting to me. But people really track each of these very individual decisions, and from what I've seen, Pompeo's a good guy. Now, Lady Gaga, there was supposed to be some sort of like conference for COVID. Excuse me, didn't mean to do that. Supposed to be some conference for COVID, and Lady Gaga was the poster girl. Now, a little side note on Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is, you guys know Marina Abramovich, the witch, basically. She's a black magic witch. I'm just an artist. Stop attacking me. I'm just an artist. I just make artwork about children getting dismembered and smearing blood and semen on the wall. I'm an artist. Okay. But whatever. Lady Gaga was basically her pupil, and there's a story. I mean, Abramovich talked about this, about how she made Lady Gaga run out in the woods naked and survive for a time, basically, because she wanted to learn all of her secrets and stuff. So Lady Gaga being the poster girl is pretty interesting for that. But yeah, it was supposed to happen. I haven't been following it too much. I saw the release, but I don't see any indication it's actually going to happen. Maybe they're just not getting enough support for it. I mean, everything that they're doing is rebounding against them very, very quickly at this point. Very, very quickly. So, I don't know. We'll see. I have heard that much did not come out of that hack. And I have heard from some people in the Q community that the hack was like a controlled leak, the WHO and everything, and that it was designed to actually remove suspicion. which is possible. I mean, this is why you have to hold everything lightly, because it's like if you were to tell that to somebody who doesn't believe in this stuff, they'd be like, "You are such a like fucking asshole." You're like, "Oh, all this stuff is in the WHO and Gates Foundation," and then they have a leak and there's nothing in it. It's like, so you're just a hack, and that's why you have to hold everything lightly. Um, it seems to me though that it's plausible, of course, that there was a controlled leak. Oh my god, this stuff came out. There's nothing in it, right? It's convenient. Always ask yourself, cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits, right? Cui bono. It's a very good way to understand intention and understand exactly what's happening. I heard one of the white ships is going to DC. I think the one in New York's going to DC. And guys, I don't really know what the whole story is with the white ships. I think the most plausible thing I've seen about it is that they allow the military to completely secure the port. That is the thing to me that seems the most relevant about their purpose there, because I don't see a lot of evidence that they've done like an enormous amount of medical work. So we'll see. Everything's going as planned with the alliance, but we are not going as fast as we could have gone. A lot of people are really still in fear, and I've had my moments of frustration. I have to, like, I go around, I see people doing like massive runs. They're doing runs outside. They're not near anybody else. They're wearing a mask. I don't even get it. I don't get it. I mean, I don't hate them for that, but these are the same people. Like, they're people who had no idea that was going on with the coronavirus. They just simply do what they're told, and they're freaked out. Like, I listen to classical music, and they have these people calling in like, in these challenging times, we just, all I could do to get through the day is listen to your station. Thank you. So it's like, Jesus Christ, guys, like, the fear is out of control. It's out of control. And it's very frustrating for me to hear that, because it's just, the fear is what's keeping them going. But it'll happen. We're just going a little slower than we could have gone. It's not, guys, by the way, it's not nearly as bad as it could have been. We're somewhere in the middle, but we're going there. Thank you. Kabamar he's a good guy. I think he's interesting. He's, if you could say that I'm a little bit more I'm mostly truther, right? A little bit esoteric. He's more esoteric, a little bit truther. I think that he gets some things wrong. I don't think that his precision on topics is quite as good as some people, but he does give good disclosure, and I recommend him as a follow. Guys, everything, including what I say here, it's truth with error. It's always truth with error. Like, we're not getting everything right, but we're trying to go in the right direction. Little by little, we're trying to piece it together. So, I don't know if the JFK files are going to drop. JFK files are only going to drop when we demand that they drop. That's the only time they're going to drop. I did not discuss General Flynn, so I'll say that really briefly before I got to go, because whole family's here for dinner, and I'm not going to say I'm completely missing cocktail hour. I'm with you friends, but no, I don't believe JFK Jr. is alive. I don't believe he's alive. I know that Cabal Fault says that, but I've heard way more other things to say it's not the case. But he was Trump's friend. JFK Jr. and Trump were very good friends. Now, I want to talk about General Flynn real quickly here, because this is kind of important. As you guys know, General Flynn was railroaded. I don't know that I believe all the details of General Flynn's statement, although it's the perfect statement he can craft for the situation. But he basically is saying he's not guilty now, and all the charges against him are being dropped, and he's implicating his law firm as having conflict of interest, and he's implicating basically the entire attack against him as being full of shit, which is great. It's overdue. And, for those who don't know, I mean, Flynn was accused of basically breaking national security laws, and for like a routine diplomatic conversation. And what they do, talking and getting up the FBI, they will bring these kind of charges against you, and then they'll bankrupt you with legal fees. And so Flynn had to sell his family home. I mean, I think he had 2 homes, so he moved to the second one in Rhode Island. But I mean, you're still losing like a home. Like you're losing like a home. They threatened to prosecute his son. So it's great to see that he's getting some comeuppance, and I think it's a sign of big changes to come. I mean, everything's pointing that direction. I know people want it to go faster. I got you. I agree. I wish it was going faster, but we're going there. We're going, all right? We're not going backwards. We're going forward. So let's feel good about it. So guys, I've said before, David Wilcox, Corey Good. I'm not familiar directly with their work. I've heard mixed things. I think that they're doing good stuff for the mainstream, though. David Icke as well. So, look, listen to them all. Just remember, everything's truth with error. Okay, truth with error. Just remember that stuff. So, all right, my friends, appreciate you guys jumping in. We'll talk next week.